Number 2 is this. Relational youth workers go to the student's world. Not only are relational youth workers not afraid of the student's world, but relational youth workers actually go to the student's world. They go to their school sporting events, their plays, their performances, their assemblies. Why? To show they care and to add a new depth of interest to the relationship. When you go to their world, it communicates that they are important. If you stop by their place of work just to say hi, you honor them. If you leave work a half hour early to catch the last quarter of their basketball game, you honor them. If you work near a campus and meet a student for lunch once a month, you honor them. You see, this concept of going to their world was modeled through the incarnation of Christ. God came to our world in the flesh. He actually came to us. Some youth workers prefer to call relational youth ministry incarnational youth ministry because it models so well what God did through Jesus. Now, with this talk about going to their world, I realize you're busy and you have limited time. This point is not intended to cause guilt. I'm not telling you how often to go. I'm just suggesting that you occasionally do go. I don't attend a student's entire baseball game. I don't have that much time. Plus, baseball's boring. But I'll make an appearance. I'll make sure the student sees me. I'll watch him for a little bit, and then I'll slip away. It's not the length of time that's important. It's the fact that I went that communicates concern. Think about the students God has placed in your life. How can you go to their world in the next month? A relational youth worker goes to the student's world. Number 3, a relational youth worker looks for ways to be verbally encouraging. It's no secret that students are dying for encouragement. At school, students are put down, they're made fun of, they're ridiculed. And this verbal abuse doesn't only happen from their enemies. Some of their best friends talk to them this way under the guise of, "Yeah, I was just kidding." But those kidding comments stick and they hurt. All that to say, students crave genuine affirmation. And genuine affirmation is in the heart and on the lips of a relational youth worker. You see, a relational youth worker will look for opportunities to encourage students because they understand the power of words. They know words influence, shape, esteem, and motivate students. Now, if this doesn't describe you, I want to challenge you to ask God for eyes and words that will strengthen students. It starts in our heart. As Jesus said in Matthew 12, a good person produces good words from a good heart, and an evil person produces evil words from an evil heart. If encouragement originates within my heart, encouragement should be genuine. If I said something like, "Hey, Bob, I've noticed you don't sweat much for a fat guy." Now, that may be true, but it's not genuine. Genuine is, "Hey, Bob, I've noticed the way you treat visitors to our group, and I want you to know I really appreciate it, and it shows me what a great guy you are." Recently, we were at a 2-day conference with a bunch of our students, and one night we were in a restaurant. I asked all of our leaders to pick one student and prepare a short encouragement for a spontaneous pseudo-awards ceremony. Our leaders each gave a 15-second encouragement. I know it sounds simple, but it was powerful. Several students wrote on their evaluation that that time was one of the highlights of their conference. Words are powerful. Use them to encourage students. Relational youth workers look for ways to be verbally encouraging. Number 4 is this. Relational youth workers keep their eyes open. I tell our leaders that I want them to focus on a few students that God has entrusted to their care, but while they are focusing on a few, they need to keep their eyes open to those who are unconnected. Relational youth workers have an eye for the student on the fringe, on the outside. Relational youth workers are able to see and sense those who feel awkward. Do you remember the first time when you entered the youth ministry, how awkward you felt? Do you remember the uncomfortable feeling of not being connected? It's an awful feeling, and one that should only last for a few minutes if the youth ministry has relational adults. Several years ago, I was in between churches, and I helped out our local Young Life Club. I would show up to their student meetings not as a speaker, but as an adult who was there to love students. I would go up to students and say, "Hey, I'm Doug." And they would politely shake my hand, mumble their name, and walk away to their friends. Not one student said, "Hi, Doug. Wow, thanks for volunteering your time to be here and care for me and my friends. The sacrifice you give to your family to show us God's love. Man, it is great to have you here." And since I knew no one, I wandered around unconnected. It was a horrible feeling. After a few weeks of arriving late and leaving early, basically to avoid the pain of being unconnected, I started to see if there were any other loners like me on the outside. Well, guess what? There were.